We've got a new book. It's going to be read in two sections, part A and part B, and this is part A, of course. It's from the original prologue to the animated film Missing Link, and it's called A Smile for Sasquatch, and it's by Stephen Marten and illustrated by Aaron Cushley. So there's going to be two videos of it, so enjoy the videos. So let's start reading. Sasquatch smiled as he put the last dab of colour on his welcome mat, thatched from grass and coloured with berries. It was a perfect invitation to friends, he thought. Then again, how could he know? He had never had a friend before. Yeah, sure, there were those boys from Bighorn and the balloonist from Cushley. And there was also the shaman from Sourdough, but he was a cheater. And I don't think they mean the cheater like the animal, but that he wasn't a very fair person. Sasquatch placed the mat outside his cave and stood back to admire its beauty. It even had the Sasquatchian phrase for welcome splotched right there in huckleberry juice. Cluck, he crooned, enjoying the tickle in his tonsils. And then it was time for his bath. After all, it had been 2 weeks. Sasquatch had no sooner turned to pick up his scrubby when he heard it, a tinkling in the wind. Not a tinkling, no, it was a clattering, like a cabinet of kitchenware, and he hurried off to investigate. It was a woman. She had shovels that jangled, sifters that spangled, and a spray of hair as yellow as the sunlight. "Oh dear," she said, spying Sasquatch. "I hope my clanking didn't disturb you." Sasquatch stared at her. She shimmered when she moved, and her words came tumbling out of her mouth like a mountain spring. "Yep, I got my pans and my pickaxes with me today. I am a prospector. That means I look for gold. Course, I don't know what I'd do if I ever found any." Sasquatch smiled. But when she smiled, he wasn't sure why. He just knew how nice it felt. "Forgive me," she said, wading closer and extending her hand. "My name's Susan. Hello." Sasquatch didn't know any fancy words like hello or even what a handshake was, but it was the first time that these things had ever happened to him. And for this, he was overjoyed. He handed her a huckleberry. "Why, it's perfect," she glistened. "Thank you." Sasquatch watched as the woman found a spot to work along the pebbly sandbar. Every now and then she would look up and see him standing at the shore. "Hello again," she'd call out, and then he would disappear into the woods and return with a huckleberry. This went on for an entire day. A hello for a huckleberry and a huckleberry for a hello. It was their game, and Sasquatch loved it. Some afternoons they would sit under the shade of a tall redwood as she captivated him with stories about the world beyond the mountains. One night, Sasquatch fell asleep, hoping his new friend would find all the gold she was looking for. Mostly, though, he really hoped she would stay. Sorry, that's my dog Georgie nuzzling my arm for a bit of attention. The next day, Sasquatch awoke to find the woman on the mountain ridge, bags packed and moving on. "Goodbye," she shouted, hailing a wave. Sasquatch clambered up onto a rock to shout back. He thought, "Hrecklack," and then, "Hello." But by the time the sounds reached his throat, she was gone. "Oh," he groaned sadly. Sasquatch trudged back to his cave to make some breakfast, though he really didn't feel like eating. He kept staring at an ancient painting on his wall, left from a time when humans and Sasquatches lived side by side in these woods, or at least they tried to. If only they used the same words, he thought. It's Indigenous paintings from this country. They would be very similar, well, different icons, but Indigenous people in Australia also did this and still do it. The next day, Sasquatch took a deep breath of mountain air. He spat out a fly and concocted a plan. It was time for his own prospecting mission, to find words. The first ones he found were on a sign, "Falling Rock." He tested them on his tongue and discovered that they even sounded like a boulder rolling down a hill. He plucked them from the stem and dropped them into his bag, the perfect start to his collection. There he is, taking the whole sign, because he wants to learn to read too. Outside a small mining town, he found several more words, just ripe for the picking. He tested each one and chose his favourites and added them to his collection. I wonder what signs Sasquatch took next. His next find was more of a challenge. "Hot bath," it said. 10 cents. He wrestled it from the side of a building and smiled at the cowboy inside. "Hello," Sasquatch said to them in his very best people voice. "Hot bath, please." He waited for the man to reply, but as eager as he was to have his first conversation, the timing was not right. Look at this. There he is in the bath, and there's Sasquatch, and the man's going, "Oh my goodness." And there he is with his towel running away from Sasquatch. Poor Sasquatch. Arriving at a narrow mountain pass, Sasquatch sat down to review the day's finds. A carriage approached with children inside, and so he waved and smiled and crooned a few words that he thought that they would like. And this time the reply was very prompt. "Ah! Sasquatch!" Look at this. As a sign says, "Beware of the Sasquatch." The carriage veered, sending a trunk toppling to the ground. Sasquatch gathered it up, clapped it close, and raced after them. He had no words for, "Wait, I have your trunk." So he shouted something, "Potato!" And just then, Sasquatch's foot hit a fallen rock, and he went tumbling over an embankment, falling down, down, down into Old Kemp Creek. Sasquatch had never been to this part of the creek before, and he had never seen anything like what lay before him now. An abandoned wreckage half covered in vines and wedged between the hillside, looking as if it had been there a very long time. He approached it cautiously. There was nothing left of the driver except for his bones and a few front teeth, just enough for a strange smile. Sasquatch stepped back, rubbed his hands together, and cracked open the carriage like a giant walnut. Whoosh! Pouring over his feet were hundreds of small slab-shaped objects smelling of leather and old trees. He sniffed one and carefully opened it with his thumbs, and he looked closer. Could it be? And that is the end of part A of our Sasquatch story. You will have to tune in to the next video to find out what happens next. I can't wait to share it with you.